Oh boy. Welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now dubbed by Disney, or called Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you a lot. I have the Shadows of Revan expansion for the Old Republic MMO. I have quite a few short stories that are sprinkled around this era. Of course, again, I did not play the games. I just know that I don't have a lot of time right now, so it's a bit difficult, but I've been watching, like 8-hour videos on it. So I'm getting the gist, the main, for those of you coming in who haven't seen my previous video on it, I have, like the main story, important side quests, important conversations, but anything non-important like gameplay, except for like immediate battles that are, important to the story and stuff, are left out. So that is that. But yeah, so I've seen pretty much everything it has to offer here. Up next would be the Eternal Empire expansion with Valkorion, which is Vitiate in Valkorion's body. So that will be entirely interesting. I have seen that sacrifice trailer in the past, and it is oh so glorious. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are here to conclude the story of Revan. A story that we've been following since, even though it was only little hints and sprinkles, it started with the KOTOR comics, was where we followed Zane Garrick and stuff by, at least chronologically. Of course, that's not where it started, but by John Jackson Miller. That's where we first, saw that stuff being started, and his story is only now being concluded, which is pretty crazy. He has quite an epic tale, Jedi that, is disenchanted with the Jedi Order, fights against the Mandalorians that are attacking innocents, becomes a Dark Lord, only to be redeemed yet again by memory loss, and to find a fusion between the two, and then end it here. He has had quite a journey. Since the title of this video is the Shadow of Revan Expansion, I will give you, non-spoiler version of that, and then I'll get into all the short stories and stuff here, which won't be really spoilers because they're short stories, so you won't have to worry about that part. And I'll save the Revan Expansion spoilers if you have not played the game or have not watched it for the very end. So, long story short, in the last part of, in the base game, I think, of the MMO, Revan was released by the player character, the hero of Tython. Mitra Surik, left Revan for a time because she realized that, Revan's body was degrading, despite the fact that, he's been alive for 300 years, and that he could not keep control of the Emperor forever. So he gets freed. I had to watch a video because I kind of forgot exactly how he died, but he did end up dying. However, because he was so in the middle with the Force, it's weird. It's really weird, but like his spirit. Oh wait, that's spoilers. I can't talk about that. But basically, what I can say is that seemingly Revan is back and he's evil. What? Evil again? That doesn't make sense. But there's more to it than that. There are a lot of things going on. But rest assured that this was the first time in this entire MMO where I was like, because most of the MMO, and I've watched, a bit of it, has been, like the books were much better, but the game itself was, There was highlights in it for sure, but most of it was, Then we got to this expansion. This is the first time I was like really engaged, where I really enjoyed it. This was much better. I know there's a lot of people who don't like Revan's story in the Old Republic. They don't like the novel. They don't like him in the game. They like him in Knights of the Old Republic, and that's it. Nothing else. That is Revan, and I understand that, but I enjoyed what I saw, and considering that it was BioWare themselves who created the character Revan, I think it's a bit weird to yell at them for using Revan how they want. No matter whether or not you love KOTOR 2 or not, or think it's a better game, or think the writers of that game were better, the first game was still made by BioWare. They created that character. So, whatever. I'm trying to think about what I can talk about without spoiling. The first part of the expansion, you're on this planet called Rishi, and you're kind of pretending to be a pirate, and it's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of actually really fun side characters in this. You have this lady that's working with Theron Shan, and yes, Theron Shan does make an appearance in the video game. We get to see a little bit more Darth Maul, not too much. Then, of course, we also have this. It seriously reminded me of, for those of you who watched me review, or at least know about the book, the trilogy by Brian Daley of Han Solo. There's a droid named Bullocks. Bullocks and something, but it's basically like this droid with another little droid like in the center of it. But this time you have a Wookiee, and a little droid head attached to him who talks, and they were really fun characters, and I really enjoyed them. But stuff with the Emperor is also addressed here, which makes me really curious and excited, because from most of what I know about him, he has a beard, and he's a human, and he is Valkorian, not Vitiate. So it'll be very interesting to see the next expansion. But I don't want to get too much into that. I don't really have too much to say about it anyway. But rest assured, there is more to be talked about in spoilers. Rest assured, if you played the base game, or have watched, or have heard about the base game of Swtor, and you're like, this is like I did, I suggest you give this expansion a shot, whether that be by watching it on YouTube or playing it yourself, because this expansion was significantly better than the base game. I can't speak for all the class storylines, but for the Jedi Knight one, I was like, There might be, the Sith Inquisitor or whatever, the Sith War and all that. That might have better stories just in general. I'm not sure. I can only speak for the Jedi Knight one, but it was very maybe there was other parts of the base game that were fantastic, and that's wonderful. But that's pretty much all I have to say, non-spoiler wise, for that. Don't worry about spoilers, though. I'll tell you when I'm going to talk about spoilers for the expansion. Right now, I'm going to go in chronological order of stuff that we would have witnessed. So you would have started off, non-spoiler wise, with the Hutt Cartel, Rise of the Hutt Cartel, which is one of the expansions. It's okay. This is the last and only time I've seen Hutts be very, not that they're not aggressive, but actually be going against the military. So that was interesting. It seemed like, and I mentioned this in my Fate of the Jedi series, also, not just because I thought it, because that would be a lie. I'd watched previous, I don't know if it was a more civilized age or what, but I had watched Matt Wilkins. Matt Wilkins, by the way, if you're watching, I love you. Thank you for watching. Also, you should go subscribe to Matt Wilkins. Just type in the name, and if you're too lazy, click on my channel, featured channels. He's on there. Go subscribe. You don't have an excuse. Anyway, so it seemed like the Hutts were going to maybe play a role after Crucible, which is the final novel chronologically in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. But we didn't really get to see anything with that. The Hutts have always been, like the crime lords, the crime syndicates doing stuff secretly and stuff. They've never openly engaged the military, right? Like when the Empire takes control, the Empire doesn't like them, but they find ways of, staying relevant and being allowed to kind of exist, even though the Empire doesn't really like it. And same thing with the old, with the prequels. The prequels, the Republic was in its heyday, and yet the Hutts were still doing stuff. So they've always found a way of doing that. But this one, we actually have a Hutt directly going against them, like having a small army of mercenaries and stuff going against the military and the Jedi and stuff. So that was interesting. But other than that, the expansion as a whole is very it's very whatever. But yeah, they never really try something like this again. I mean, it's not them as like a whole species, but there is one in particular. But I don't really see any of them like that try that again after that point. After that, what you would read chronologically next is a short story. At least I think so. Again, as Matt Wilkins would say, it's best I know how. The Bedtime on Concordia. There's not really anything to spoil. Basically, all it is a Mandalorian family talking about Shae Vizsla. Shae Vizsla was the Mandalorian woman that we saw in the beginning of the Deceived trailer, who's also, she's probably mentioned in the Deceived novel, but she's the one, if you watch the Deceived trailer on YouTube, she's the Mandalorian that quickly puts on her helmet, nods to Malgus, and goes in and throws the flamethrower in the Jedi Temple. But she's, this is, like 60 years later or whatever since then. So she's an older lady. And so her exploits are kind of just, legendary now. And so there's stories being told about her. And that's because she's going to show up in the next expansion. The next thing would be the Dreadmasters kind of storyline in the MMO. I don't really have anything to say. It's okay. The Dread Masters were kind of interesting. Thought they were kind of weird. I really don't have anything to say about it though. But that would be next. After that would be Trouble on the Tyon Himagami. I don't have too much to say about that either. Basically, all it is there's this crazy scientists, and we have Rak ghouls involved again. I don't want to spoil anything for you. That's basically it for that part of the game. Up next, we have Manon as a part of the Forged Alliance storyline in the video game. After you go to, before you go to Manon, I'm so sorry. Before you go to Manon in the game, or if you're watching it before the heroes head to Manon, there's a short story called Surface Detail. It is very short. I don't want to... It's not the wonderful story. You don't need any of this to enjoy the game. But if you want more, it's just a Selketh working a desk job, and they never are said by their true names, but we get to meet somebody that we'll meet in the Shadows of Revan expansion, and we get to see Theron Shan. That is about it. It's a normal and boring day for the Selketh. Maybe. Then, after you finish the Manon part of the game, you would read Wanted, Dead, or Disassembled, the short story. There are two bounty hunters talking. That is all. Then, you would do the rest of the Forge Alliance thing. Sorry. Oh, I forgot to mention. Sorry, before you would read Surface Detail, you would do the Forged Alliance, Tython, and Korriban sections before that. But I guess same before Manon works too. And then you would have the Remnant short story, which is just a story about a smuggler that was on Rakata Prime. And if you know anything about Rakata Prime, it's a bunch of, crazy native Rakata trying to kill you. That's all I'll say. Then we finally get to the end of the Forged Alliance arc, and we get a little teaser for what's to come. We get to see Revan again, and he has a fleet of an army ready, and he's telling us not to get involved again. And then he leaves. Well, destroying some things first. And you're like, what? Revan bad again? What? And then we finally go to the Shadows of Revan expansion. I already talked about it as best as I thought I could, and non-spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, now's the time to go. But I made sure to give you all the short stories, all the expansions and stuff in there as best I could in chronological order. So yeah, that is about that for non-spoiler wise. If you don't want spoilers, it's time for you to go. Those of you who have finished the game or watched it on YouTube or simply don't care about spoilers, join me as we discuss some of the things that I found interesting in here. So, we start off on this planet called Rishi, where we have to pretend to be pirates, like a gang pirates or whatever, where we're apparently cannibals or whatever. That's what they think we are anyway, and it's a really fun part of the game. There was actually a really nice little tidbit that happened during this part as well. Master Or's your Jedi master in the game. He materializes as a ghost, and it's kind of an Obi-Wan Kenobi moment, like Luke Skywalker had in The Heir to the Empire. It's this last time apparently that he'll be able to pop up. But he just wants to remind the player character, why they became a Jedi. Because they've been fighting wars, fighting Sith nonstop, defeated the Emperor, or thought they did, and, all that's crazy and stuff. But helping a little guy, like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, just getting somebody something to eat that's down on their luck, that's homeless, curing somebody of a disease, saving somebody from a mugger, which, are the best parts of the Jedi Order. And yet, if you think back, because let's not forget about history, like liberals like to do. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. If you could even recognize what I said, I'm joking. But if we go back to Knights of the Old Republic, what was going on before the Mandalorian, or during the Mandalorian Wars? The Jedi didn't want to help the little guy because it had nothing to do with Sith. And since it had nothing to do with Sith, it wasn't their problem. That's cold. Obviously, they cared, but not enough to do something about it. And that's what created Revan. But it was still a nice lesson to say, hey, yeah, you're doing all this, world-saving, galaxy-wide stuff. But just remember originally why you became a Jedi. To help the little people. I just thought it was nice. And then he goes away. Then we get to meet Shai Vizsla. You have to fight her, of course. But she's always been anti-Jedi. But here we see her kind of softening up to them because of you. And then we learn that Revan, if this really is Revan, wants to resurrect the Emperor so he can finally actually kill the Emperor. Because the Emperor's not dead. His body died, but his soul lives. Of course, he's able to split his soul in two, apparently, because Valkorion is currently in charge of the Eternal Empire, which we will talk more about in the next expansion video. We find out that Mar and Satele are working together. The Sith Empire doesn't want to work together, and neither does the Jedi. But these two individuals have enough clout, amongst their men that they can force them to work together for a time. Revan's spirit splits in two. So this is where things got a little bit confusing. I still don't fully understand it. So at some point, Revan did die, and then he was so imbalanced with the Force that his light side, side of him, wanted to move on and pass on, while the other half, his dark side, wanted vengeance, wanted revenge. And so the dark side basically inhabited his physical body, and he just wanted revenge against the Emperor and to destroy him. And eventually you have to defeat Revan yourself, and with the help of your friends. And you finally defeat Revan. He's able to make peace with his soul. His soul is whole again, and he goes away. And that's the end of Revan's story as we know it. We will not see Revan again for the rest of all of time and space. We will have mentions of Revan. For example, Darth Bane will often mention Revan. He has his teachings from before all of this, though. Like back when he was a Sith, before even the first game of Knights of the Old Republic. He, left holocrons and stuff, and that is the stuff that Bane will find. But other than that, we will have no more of Revan. So rip and dip Revan. but what an epic story he had. The player character gets ranked, I think, by Satele Shan to be the battle master of this era, which is actually pretty cool. And then the next thing you have, chronologically, I feel bad for those. I said spoilers, so they're probably not watching. But for those of you who've seen this stuff, oh, I forgot to mention these. I feel bad now. But chronologically, what would be next for you after finishing that part, the part on Yavin 4? You would read One Night in the Dealer's Den short story, which focuses on Theron Shan. And then Regrets short story, which focuses on Jace Malcolm and Theron Shan. Both of them dealing with Theron, though. Though, of course, me being a character-driven person, I much more enjoyed the Regrets short story. Plus, the Regrets short story not only mentions the events of the MMO, but also mentions the event from the Annihilation novel, which I appreciated. It's kind of like a continuation of the novel in a sense. It's a very short story, though. But me being a very character-driven guy, I really enjoyed that short story. And, you know, say what you will, all of those other short stories are not relevant in the slightest to your enjoyment of this game. But I really do recommend, if you read nothing else, that you find that Regrets short story of the Old Republic and read it. Because it's nothing, like, amazing or anything. But if you're a fan of the books and you've read Annihilation, this is a good little continuation of that. So I think it's worth your time. Now we reach the last part of the video, the Rise of the Emperor part of the game. This is where we head to Ziost because the Emperor is apparently trying to come back or whatever. Vitiate, he's possessing multiple people, and we gotta put a stop to it. And eventually we do. But at the very end of the game, Vitiate threatens us. He gives this wonderfully chilling speech. You know, his body, there's no body, he didn't get to have one. But his voice is echoing. You know, I've decided I'd rather have you alive. You're much more interesting to me alive. I want you alive so that way when I conquer everything and destroy everything, you can be there to witness it and see how wrong you were. And then, when the player character leaves the planet, Ziost, almost exactly like how Darth Nihilus did it before the events of the second KOTOR game. He just annihilates everyone on that planet. We even got mentions of that in the Revan novel, but here we get to see it. It's like a Thanos moment, like a snap, but except he doesn't even have to snap. People burst to dust. The planet's life is like, just sucked out. And the expansion ends like that, with a whole planet filled with death, and having no idea what's going to go on with Vitiate. Of course, we will see Vitiate again as Valkorion, but we won't see that until we get to the next expansion. But that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Sharing helps out a ton. Do not forget to subscribe, please, and let me know what you thought of this game, at this portion of the game, in the comment section below. Do you like Revan's story? Do you not like where it went? Do you not like how it concluded? Did you like how it concluded? What do you think about Emperor Vitiate as a villain? Without spoilers, do you think his character is enhanced as Valkorion? Whatever thoughts you have about the game. Spoilers up until this point. Like, talk about anything you want if you're going to talk. Up to this point, please don't spoil anything moving forward because I know nothing about it. Anyway, that'll be all for me today. Until next time, guys. And may the Force be with you.